Welcome to Echoes of the Unknown, the podcast where we'll be exploring some of the world's most fascinating unsolved mysteries. I'm Jack Montgomery, and today we'll be looking back at a grisly double murder that occurred in Texas one sweltering summer day in 1965. A gruesome discovery in a quiet Houston home sent shockwaves throughout the city. The Icebox Murders stands as one of Houston's most disturbing unsolved cases, featuring a truly grotesque crime scene and a mysterious suspect who seemed to vanish into thin air. The story begins on the evening of June 23, 1965, when Houston Police Captain Charles Bullock and his partner, L.M. Barta, were dispatched to the home of Fred and Edwina Rogers for a welfare check. The elderly couple lived at 1815 Driscoll Street with their reclusive son, Charles. Edwina's nephew, Marvin Martin, hadn't heard from his aunt for a worrying amount of time, and concerned neighbors hadn't seen the elderly couple for several days. That prompted calls to authorities. The initial investigation revealed an eerily undisturbed house, with no signs of forced entry or struggle. The knock at the front door by the two police officers was met with silence, so they wound around the back of the house. There they found a makeshift barricade of flower pots obstructing the back door, which made Bullock suspicious. When he and Barta pushed inside and entered the kitchen, his suspicions shifted into adrenaline. He later remembered that something just didn't feel right inside the Rogers home. "I don't know why I looked in the refrigerator," he later recalled. "For some reason, I just opened it." When they opened the vegetable drawer of the fridge, the two police officers initially thought they were looking at neatly stacked cuts of meat from a hog. However, they were soon horrified to realize that what they had found were actually human remains. Specifically, two decapitated human heads. The victims were identified as Fred Rogers, 81, and his wife Edwina, 79. Their heads were wrapped in cellophane, while their torsos and limbs had been meticulously removed, creating a scene that would haunt investigators for decades to come. Edwina had been shot in the head. Fred had been bludgeoned with a hammer. But their killer had gone above and beyond simply killing the couple. Before stuffing their heads in the refrigerator, he drained their bodies of blood, dismembered both of them, removed Fred's eyes and genitals, and flushed his intestines down the toilet. The autopsy findings revealed the incredibly brutal nature of the murders. Edwina had been beaten and shot execution style, while Fred endured an even more horrific fate. He was apparently dismembered while still alive. The killer had used the bathtub as a staging area for the dismemberment before carefully arranging the remains in the refrigerator. The clinical precision of the dismemberment suggested someone with knowledge of anatomy or medical experience. Quickly, the investigation into what the press soon dubbed the Icebox Murders pivoted to a single suspect, the couple's 43-year-old son, Charles. One reason for that was the discovery by crime scene investigators of blood on the keyhole of his bedroom door. Although Charles was now the prime suspect, police soon found that he had literally vanished without a trace. No fingerprints, no financial activity, nothing whatsoever to indicate his whereabouts. The Houston police launched an extensive manhunt, but Charles had seemingly disappeared into thin air. The complete absence of any evidence suggested either meticulous planning or professional involvement in his disappearance. Several compelling theories have emerged over the years regarding Charles's disappearance and potential involvement in the murders. One suggests that Charles had meticulously planned his escape, supported by the discovery in his room of books about disappearing without a trace. This theory would explain the complete lack of evidence and his successful evasion of authorities. The presence of such literature in his possession indicates a possible premeditation to vanish, whether as a perpetrator or someone fearing for their life. Another intriguing theory connects Charles to intelligence work and the CIA. Some researchers have linked him to covert operations and noted his alleged association with David Ferry, a known associate of Lee Harvey Oswald. This has led to speculation that his disappearance might have been connected to larger, more complex circumstances involving government agencies. After all, he had served as a Navy seismologist in World War II, graduated with a degree in nuclear physics, and then spent nearly a decade continuing to work as a seismologist for Shell Oil. Charles also spoke multiple languages. His background could have provided opportunities for involvement in intelligence operations during the height of the Cold War. A darker theory proposes that Charles himself became a victim, possibly eliminated by associates involved in covert operations. This would explain why no trace of him was ever found, suggesting his body was disposed of professionally to leave no evidence. The timing of his disappearance and the complete lack of any subsequent sightings or financial activity support this possibility. In 2003, cold case researchers Hugh and Martha Gardenier, both of whom are certified in financial forensics, published the Icebox Murders, which presented their comprehensive theory that Charles was indeed the killer. They suggested he had escaped the country using pre-planned aliases and resources. This theory aligns with the methodical nature of the crime scene and the complete absence of evidence leading to his whereabouts. According to their book, Charles had endured his parents' manipulative behavior for years. The authors wrote that Fred and Edwina had taken out loans in their son's name, robbed him of his savings, and basically made his life a living hell. Although the Gardeniers' research provided new perspectives on the case, definitive proof of their theory remains elusive. The case has several notable aspects that make it particularly intriguing. The precision of the dismemberment suggested someone with medical knowledge or experience with anatomy. The careful arrangement of the remains in the refrigerator indicated a level of organization that seemed at odds with the brutal nature of the murders. Additionally, the complete disappearance of Charles Rogers, whether as perpetrator or victim, demonstrates an extraordinary ability to vanish without leaving any traceable evidence. The relationship dynamics within the Rogers family paint a picture of severe family strain, adding another layer of complexity to the case. The victims appeared to be an ordinary elderly couple, at least on the surface. Fred was a retired real estate agent, and Edwina was a housewife. However, their relationship with Charles was very strange, to say the least. He would leave home before dawn and return after dark. But some neighbors and family members questioned whether he actually had a job. Despite living in the same house, Charles rarely even saw his parents in person. Rather, he communicated with them primarily by slipping notes under the door of his isolated bedroom in the attic. This behavior might have been an indication of deeper psychological issues or severe family dysfunction. This extremely unusual living arrangement raised questions about the real reasons for the truly bizarre family dynamics, as well as Charles's psychological state at the time of the murders. A nationwide search to find Charles Rogers after the murders yielded nothing. Authorities even checked the local airfields, as he had learned how to fly while serving in the Navy. Some people speculate that Charles may have fled to South or Central America, possibly Mexico, living under an assumed identity. This theory is supported by his language skills and the complete lack of trace evidence in the United States. However, despite extensive investigation, no confirmed sightings or evidence of his presence in these regions have ever been discovered. He was officially declared dead in 1975. Despite decades of investigation and numerous theories, The Icebox Murders remain officially unsolved. The case continues to fascinate true crime enthusiasts and investigators, not only for its gruesome nature, but also for the complete disappearance of the prime suspect. Whether Charles Rogers was a calculated killer who successfully engineered his own disappearance, a victim of larger conspiracies, or something else entirely, remains one of Houston's most enduring mysteries. Thanks for listening to this episode of Echoes of the Unknown. So do you think that Charles Rogers murdered his parents? And if so, do you think he's been living in hiding somewhere all these years? If you have any theories, we would love to hear them. Reach out to us on social media or email us at echoesunknownpod@gmail.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with fellow mystery lovers. Until next time, keep questioning, keep searching, and remember, some secrets refuse to stay buried.